draft season upon us, we are going to have a rankings week this week that we're going to kick off today with quarterback rankings. We're getting closer and closer to our goal of 750 subscribers by the start of the regular season. So if you could hit that subscribe button for us, that would help us out a lot. First quarterback in our rankings is Josh Allen. Surprise to nobody. He is just too consistent and too good year over year to have him ranked anywhere else. But I will say, if you do want to have Lamar Jackson ranked ahead of him, he did have incredible upside last season. So, he could have another huge year and is number 2 for both of us. And then Jaden Daniels, one of my favorite quarterbacks to pick if I don't get one of those top couple picks. And I do really, really think he could take a step forward this year. He's got all the rushing upside of any quarterback in the league, on top of the fact that he only threw for 480 attempts, but still had very good passing game numbers. And then a little bit down, but still in this top tier, is Joe Burrow. We both have him ranked at 4 ahead of Jalen Hurts. Just similar situation last year. Great weapons, really bad defense. He's going to be throwing it a ton. And then the last guy that I mentioned is Jalen Hurts. So obviously the rushing touchdowns, huge part of his profile. He took a pretty big step back in passing last year because they just didn't really need him to do it. So he's getting knocked down a little bit for both of us in these rankings. The reason I have these 5, or that we have these 5 in a tier, is because we really feel better about them than 6 down. 6 down, it kind of gets into a lot of sameness, and I really think that these 5 can be first-round picks, even in your 10-team Superflex leagues.
So if you're someone that's drafting this weekend or very early, are you nervous at all about the Terry McLaurin situation?
I am getting more and more nervous about it as we get closer to the season, but ultimately, I just don't think he's going to hold out. I have said maybe knock down holdout players that aren't superstars in the rankings, and I think McLaurin kind of falls into that category, so I might move him down specifically. But for Daniels, so much of his value is wrapped up in his rushing anyways, and I do think with Debo coming in, despite the negative reports around him, I do think that he should be able to kind of bolster the offense at least a little bit. Ertz still functioning as the safety blanket, so hopefully McLaurin can get kind of up to speed once he does sign it. I do expect him to be part of the team come opening day.
Yeah, it just makes no sense to not pay him.
The media post that was like, I can think of a perfect fit for Terry McLaurin, somebody with a young quarterback that really needs a number 1 wide receiver, and they just said Washington. Like, he's a perfect fit. Makes way too much sense. He's not going anywhere. They're not trading him. That was just a public ploy to try and get negotiations going.
Yeah, and then with Joe Burrow specifically, I am getting more and more excited about him. The fact that he is playing in the preseason, because kind of the only knock on him has been, obviously he's been banged up coming into various years, but just the fact that he's gotten off to such slow starts that I think getting more reps in games, and again, I understand it's preseason, but if he's going to come out firing week 1, he's definitely someone that I'm not necessarily pushing up because I have it 4, but more and more confident in to draft in the first or early second round in Superflex.
Yeah, and I had a buddy actually ask, why are Burrow and Chase out there in the first meaningless preseason game? I was like, oh, I got a good reason for you on this one, because they're horrible to start the year every single year. So yeah, I agree with you there that I'm much more excited about them, to see them out there, to see them doing well. It doesn't even matter if they're against second or third team defenses or whatever. It's about them getting reps together, getting their timing down, getting on the same page early in the year. And I think that can help him possibly get off to a quick start.
And this whole group of guys, whether you're in 8, 10, 12, 14 team Superflex leagues, are fantastic first round picks. And our advice with that is, if you do go kind of with an anchor QB at the top, the depth that we'll talk about with the rest of these tiers is so strong that you'll still be able to hammer out good position players as other teams are starting to fill out their QB rooms. So
getting into the A tier now, into tier 2 here, this is going to be led off with Patrick Mahomes. The weapons, I guess, have a lot of uncertainty around them now. Hollywood banged up, Rashee Rice likely to get suspended, Travis Kelce another year older, so maybe he gets off to a slow start again. I hope not, but I'm definitely feeling less confident about Mahomes right now. Baker, we both love Baker. Obviously, Godwin isn't going to be there to start the year, but Ibuka seems to be able to fill that role pretty well. So, he might be a sleeper, but we both still like Baker a lot. Jared Goff, this is as high as you'll see him ranked anywhere, but rightfully so, we feel like, because over his last 4 years in Detroit, he's never finished outside the top 10, and he provides a level of stability that you just don't see necessarily from other players in Superflex. The next guy is Brock Purdy. Obviously, his weapons struggled with injuries a lot last year, so he didn't necessarily do as well, but in 15 games, still put up 278 yards. Still feels very solid. Kittle, McCaffrey should be back. Pearsall looking good in camp, so I really think that Purdy still can produce as a top 10 quarterback. Dak Prescott, another guy that I maybe like a little bit more than you, but that I'm going to continue to push up just because I feel like his upside, if he's healthy, is so high. The running game is a mess, and the whole offense is going to fall onto Dak's shoulders. And the last guy in this tier is Kyler Murray. This is fueled by my ranking of him. I have recently come around quite a bit on Kyler, especially for his rushing upside. And I think I have him ranked 9th, but I do think that he can pay that off. And you see he was quarterback 10 last year, and on a points per game basis over his last 3 years has still maintained pretty elite production in the quarterback position.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting with Mahomes and Baker specifically was for the purposes of the NFL draft, it was like you look at the Chiefs wide receiver room, they've got kind of a lot of not sameness, but guys that are kind of like role catering type guys. And then it's like they draft Jalen Royals, who you and I both liked a ton, but it was like, why do we need another like Rashee Rice top type player in this system? And turns out like he might get some work early in the season, and we'll see how he looks. And then same thing with Emeka Egbuka going to the Buccaneers. It's like, wait a minute, Godwin is awesome, Evans is awesome, and then every report on Egbuka is just glowing. I can't push him up high enough, and I just really think he's going to be someone that you're starting week 1. So I'm not super concerned about, you know, the injuries with some of those other guys, but it'll be interesting to see in Superflex leagues when these guys start to come off the board, because I think the fact that there's a lot of sameness, you know, maybe we'll be playing a little bit of chicken with this tier.
Yeah, and these guys get ranked all over the map. So again, if you're with us and you're sticking with our rankings, like on Sleeper, Goff is at quarterback 14, Dak is at quarterback 17. Like these guys are really low in certain rankings. So make sure you know that, because you could possibly get very good values out of these guys. If you do decide to go with our rankings and have some faith in what we're putting out here, because those two guys in particular, I really think can help build a foundation of quarterback that can really help you stand out, especially if you get one of those top guys and then you wait until round 6, say, to get either one of it off or Dak. I think that's an excellent strategy, especially on Sleeper. Going down to the B tier now, we've got Caleb Williams starting it off. So this is fueled by your ranking of him for sure. And, you know, he obviously is going to be in Ben Johnson's offense. So lots of weapons around him. And if he can grasp the concepts that are thrown at him, he should have a pretty solid year. Finished as quarterback 16. So it's not like we have him crazily ranked ahead of that this year. Next guy up is Justin Herbert. So, you know, we're a little bit of Charger homer. Can't possibly rank Bo Nix ahead of Justin Herbert. So that's both where we're at. You know, and they had a huge emphasis on establishing the run game early last year. So he didn't get off to the quickest start, but as the year went on, he was better and better and better. And so was Conkey, and still finishes quarterback 12. So I have a lot of faith in Herbert. Bo Nix coming in next. So obviously he's kind of the darling of the community and easily the guy that we have ranked the lowest compared to consensus. I feel like there's a little bit of CJ Stroud potential here, and that he's not necessarily going to deliver on that first year in the same way. So that's definitely not somebody I'd be looking to in the top 10 quarterbacks. Next guy up is Drake May. I almost prefer May to Nix at this point. I watched May play in the preseason. He had a rushing touchdown and 3 completions to Travion Henderson. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. You know, he's going to rush. He's going to have quick hitting, easily completable passes, and he's just going to have the such a high ceiling. So I really like Drake May. Justin Fields, obviously this is all rushing based. Hopefully he can keep the passing game together. He looked decent throwing the ball in his first preseason game. And the last guy in this tier is Jordan Love. So obviously we're both accounting for a little bit of a bounce back here, but if he does bounce all the way back to that top 5 finish, this is going to be one of the best values.
Yeah, and for me, you know, I was very, very high on Caleb Williams. I think originally I had him in like QB 8, and since I've moved him down to QB 11. But I don't want to push him down too much, right? Because it reminds me a lot of last season. I know the reports on him have been a little bit mixed, but it reminds me a lot of last season when you were initially so low on Breece Hall. And you were like, he's not going to be good. He's not, like, all of these things. And then you succumbed to the peer pressure and you pushed him up to like RB3 or 4. And then you were kicking yourself. So I'm still looking at this holistically. He's a generational prospect, et cetera, improved weapons, improved play caller, all the above. So I don't want to like push him down too much and then him be top 10. And then, you get the idea. And then with Drake May, I'm getting more tempted to move him up over Caleb. And I think the community has kind of caught up to that as well. But you just still see like a lot of rankers have him at like QB 19. And I just think with his floor of rushing, that's just a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's huge with May, right? Is that I feel like his rushing just isn't being accounted for in his rank. And whether that's fair or not, or whether they think that the Patriots offense is going to be bad again, right? If I know a lot of rankers start with projections, and if they're projecting New England to be a bottom 5 offense, then okay, I can kind of understand. But I just don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, they got Will Campbell, they signed another offensive lineman, they got Trayvon Henderson, they brought in Stephon Diggs, they have Kyle Williams, who's looking better and looked good in the preseason. Like, and then they, Chisholm, I don't know if he's going to be a thing, but he had 6 for 50 and a touchdown as well. So I don't know. I feel like they shored up their line. I feel like May is going to be the starter all offseason, and I feel like the weapons are so improved. So I don't understand QB19 rankings. I have him at 15. And I feel like I'm going to be a little too low for how hyped I am on him. He's definitely somebody that I want to target in this range as my QB2 if I can get him. And also another reason to highlight how important it is to switch your leagues to Superflex, man. These guys at this point barely matter in your regular leagues. Like Drake May is free at the end of your 1 quarterback drafts, and that just shouldn't be the case. He's going to go in the 5th, 6th round range, and I think that just makes fantasy football so much better.
Yeah, and these rankings are from a Superflex perspective. So if you're saying, hey, Justin Fields has top 5 upside because of his rushing and you're in a 1 QB league, like, yeah, absolutely push him up because you're just going to be able to get Jordan Love off the wire. But there is risk when you aren't targeting like very good established players. So that's why you'll see Herbert, Goff, Purdy get pushed up in ranking sets like these.
Going down to tier 4 or the C tier here now is going to be kicked off by CJ Stroud. So obviously the darling of last offseason ends up getting kind of buried in our rankings here. And I haven't really been picking him a lot because I feel like he goes a little bit before I have him ranked. He'll go in that 15-16 range. I don't necessarily end up picking him there, but obviously has one of the best weapons in the league. And they did kind of reconstruct the wide receiver group behind him. So hopefully that they are able to hit the ground running in the passing game. Tua, obviously somebody I like way more than you. This is definitely fueled by my ranking of him inside the top 20. I just feel like when he's out there, he's a top 15 quarterback at worst, with upside to be better than that. So, if he is able to figure out his concussion issues and stay on the field, I do think that he's going to be a pretty big value this year. Next guy up is Trevor Lawrence. So since I unburied him in my rankings, he does fly up our rankings since last time. So, his weapons are really good, and it's just kind of hard to deny that at this point. He does have 2 top 13 finishes and was, QB 14 when he got hurt last year. So I do think that, he could be back end QB2, decent value at this point in the draft. Next guy up is JJ McCarthy. We love the offense. So this is based strictly on how good we think Kevin O'Connell's offense could be, how good the weapons are. Jordan Addison's going to miss the first 3 games, so maybe he doesn't get off to the hottest start. But with Addison coming back after that, I think we could see him improve and kind of build into that starter that we expect him to be. Next guy up is the guy he replaced, who is Sam Darnold, and I've seen him buried in a lot of rankings too, like down at 28 or 29. I have a little bit more faith. I feel like Seattle has a solid offense with weapons. They brought in Cooper Kupp, who's at least a veteran, and I know we're both more in on Torrey Horton maybe than the rest of fantasy in general. So I think if Cooper Kupp does get hurt and that is going to be their second wide receiver, that could be still a good situation for Darnold. And the last guy in this tier is Anthony Richardson. So still kind of buried compared to where we had him last year, but maybe sneaking a little bit higher than you've seen him because there's no denying if he wins the job that he still has all kinds of upside on any given week. So once he got the job back last 4 weeks, he went over 20 points twice. And so it's just like, oh my gosh. Okay, so when he does play, there always is the chance that he runs like crazy and hits a 65-yard bomb, and all of a sudden he's got 20 points for you. So, that's why I have him ranked maybe a little bit higher than consensus would suggest.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point on CJ Stroud, where I haven't really found myself drafting him either. I'm very optimistic that the rookie wide receivers that they brought in from Iowa State are going to be very good players. And I think in the meantime, Christian Kirk can handle that slot role for a bit. But that being said, it's like I'm not as optimistic about that as I was last year when they also had Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. So I'm trying to get too over my skis with that. But I, hope that he does have a good season. But that offensive line is going to be a little bit tricky. So we're going to need some really good play calling from the OC. And then, with Tua specifically, he's not my guy, but I have to give you credit in the sense that, like, if it's a good matchup, like, they're going to score points and he's going to be good. It's just when he's in a bad matchup, or obviously with the injury concerns, it can be a little bit frustrating. So a lot of these guys in this tier, you have to think about your roster construction in Superflex. So if you're looking for, you've waited a while for your QB2 and you want someone like Trevor Lawrence, who maybe is a little bit safer, that's totally fine. Or CJ Stroud, for example. Or if you've already got 2 quarterbacks and you're looking for your third, that's when it makes sense to take a shot on like an Anthony Richardson or Sam Darnold repeating close to what he did last year. So always be thinking about that as you build out your teams.
Yeah, Tua for me, I think I texted you last week and I said, where's Tua going to get ranked in the week 1 quarterback rankings, right? He's is outside the top 20. Hardly anybody wants him. He's like going 22 or 23 in ADP, and he gets the Colts in week 1. So I'm like, where is he going to get ranked? Like 13th in the rankings. So,
yeah,
you're going to have him buried in the season-long rankings and in drafts, but then he's going to come out and just immediately vault to the top 15 until he gets hurt, basically. So that's the kind of the player that I want to take a shot on, because I feel like he's legitimately a starter when he's out there. And if I pair him with somebody like JJ McCarthy or Darnold or somebody in this next tier that we're going to talk about, I feel like I can get very good QB2 production. And so, I don't know, I maybe shouldn't have him ranked ahead of Stroud, but that's how I'm thinking about it. Is I'd rather have a higher ceiling for 11 games and then fill in the other 6 than have somebody that I just don't feel great about starting on a week-to-week basis with Stroud. So, and maybe that'll change immediately, but and Stroud is somebody that I'm very afraid of picking. If he's the one that's left at 20 or 19, if I get a quarterback early, I just am going to continue to wait, I guess, because this next tier I feel pretty good about as well. And so I'll continue to build my team around depth at running back and receiver before going in on Stroud. So I don't know. This is a tough tier for me because I'm not a huge fan of any of these guys other than Tua. So Tua is definitely my target of these 6 players. Going on to the D tier or tier 5, that starts off with Michael Penix. Obviously had a great run at the end of last season, showed good rapport with Drake London, has been in the media saying how good Kyle Pitts is going to be this year. So, we'll see how he ends up playing out here. I do have quite a bit of hope for him. I feel like he can be a solid player. The next guy is Matthew Stafford. So obviously we are watching very closely if he's going to get back on the field, because this is super nerve-wracking at this point. He was supposed to practice today. He's not suited up to practice. So I'm getting very worried that this is either a bigger issue than they're letting on, or that it is going to affect him during the year. So for Puka Nakua's sake and for Devontae Adams' sake, I really hope he's able to get out there, but I'm getting nervous about that back and about if it's going to be able to hold up all year. Next guy is Bryce Young. So obviously he finished very strongly last year. They got him a number 1 weapon. And so, the sky should be the limit for him if he's able to hold on to the job, if he's able to continue to build that rapport with Ted McMillan. I just really think that he could be a very good value pick, especially as a quarterback 3. And if he grows into what he was doing at the end of last year, I know there was a lot of rushing with that, so maybe not as good as he was, but if he's quarterback 15 or 18, there's going to be some value in that down here, somebody that you can get really late in your Superflex leagues. Next guy up is Cam Ward. So obviously the rookie elements, I don't know how I feel about Ward. I feel like he gets ranked quite a bit higher in some rankings and then down lower in others. I don't feel like there's a lot of consensus around him. So I do hope that he's successful. He showed some good rapport with Ridley, so maybe that'll get him off to a hot start. Next up is Aaron Rodgers. We kind of know the drill here, right? He's going to be with Pittsburgh, going to hone in on DK Metcalf and probably be quarterback 20. But, I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of upside here. And, there's obviously the injury risk for any player that's still playing at 41.
Next guy up is Geno Smith. You look at his player card and it's 3 straight finishes of top 20, which is just awesome. And he's definitely someone, if you're looking for stability as your third quarterback, you can typically rely on. But moving away from that Seattle's air raid system, it's going to be a little bit of a different environment in Las Vegas. So not someone I'm like super stoked on, but again, if it's the end of the draft and I need someone that can at least be reliable, he's a target of mine. And then with Michael Penix and Bryce Young specifically, I think one of the advantages of both of those guys is playing in the NFC South, right? Like not a great division, not a lot of great defenses. We're probably going to see a ton of shootouts. So those are two very exciting players for me. And then with Bryce Young specifically, it's like he was rushing on the ground, but like the 6 rushing touchdowns is just extremely fluky. Like he rushed for like 240 yards and got in on 6 of those. Whereas you look at Caleb Williams, who rushed for almost 500 yards and got in on none of those. And obviously Caleb's a much bigger, stronger guy than Bryce Young. So if you're thinking there's only room to go up with that, you're setting yourself up for failure. And then with Ward, I will say like, we're both very hopeful that this works out. And I do think with him specifically, it's all signs are looking pretty good in terms of like, the offensive line is improved. Like if the number 2 and 3 target earners can figure themselves out, like I think he can be in for a nice season. And he's not necessarily like a rusher, but he is still a scrambler. So I think he can, rack up 20 yards a game in certain, you get the idea. But a lot of exciting guys in this tier. It's just kind of, again, what I talked about with the previous one, whether you're looking for the stability of the Staffords or Genos, or even Rodgers to an extent, or if you're shooting for some upside with younger players.
Yeah, and Penix, I feel like, is kind of an unknown too, right? That he could excite. And I was kind of thinking that he was going to get ranked a lot higher than this in consensus, but he has been getting pushed down still too. So I feel like, if I could draft another player or two before I take another quarterback, and Penix is the guy I'm able to get from this tier, I feel pretty good about that. So I don't know if that means that I should have him in the tier higher, but I definitely agree there that there's some excitement there with Penix. And then Bryce Young, I am kind of cooling the jets on Bryce Young a little bit. I'm definitely still scared of him. I struggle to buy into shorter than season-long samples. The NFL is already such a small sample size, but I don't know. If I had more faith that he was going to look like he did at the end of the year, I mean, passing, even if you remove the rush passing, it was like 10 touchdowns and no interceptions over his last 6 games. Like he was very good, even as a passer, even without a clear number 1. It was Adam Thielen, but it's had McMillan's going to be a different deal there. So a couple guys in this tier that are definitely worth taking a shot on. And you can get these guys as your third quarterbacks in 10 leagues. So definitely like taking a shot on at least one of those guys down.
And I wish that Penix would like run more. Like his 40 time is fast. Yeah. He ran a ton at Indiana too, but I think he had like 2 ACL tears or something too. And I think he's just like, no, I'm going to be a statue and win with my arm. But I wish he would just do that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, if he was willing to run and was a threat for 300 rushing yards, he would jump probably 2 tiers. I mean, we would be having him and having a conversation with him and Love, right? We're hoping that Love can get back to that 300-ish range, and that's kind of why we're continuing to have faith that he'll be good. And if Penix was a threat to do that, we'd definitely be having a similar conversation. All right, and then the last tier is just the F tier. These are the guys that I don't necessarily want and that I think are probably going to lose their jobs at some point this year, and that's Russell Wilson. He's going to lose his job to Jackson Dart. Tyler Shuck, I mean, maybe he doesn't even start the year as a starter. He's been pretty bad, so maybe it's Rattler, or maybe he loses the job to Rattler and kind of takes back over. Not something you really want to be dealing with. And then there's Joe Flacco, who could start the year hot and then lose his job eventually just because they have so many young players on their team. So, maybe I should have Flacco ranked ahead of the other 2 just because at least I feel like I might be able to start him early in the year. But if he's already not playing by the time we hit bye weeks, the chance that you're going to even start him over the guy you draft as your second quarterback pretty low. And so the chance you get value out of him deeper into the year is diminishing, in my opinion. At least I feel like Russ might hang on to it until like the last 5 games of the year, for example, and Shuck is the one they drafted to be the starter. So I feel like once they're kind of way out of it, maybe the last 6-7 weeks of the year, it's going to be him. So anyways, that's why I have it ranked the way I do. I would not be looking to draft any of these guys.
Yeah, and the waiver wire itself at quarterback is just so thin or even non-existent in Superflex. So we definitely don't advise drafting guys that have a high likelihood of losing their jobs. But I will say with Flacco specifically, when we pull up QB rankings week 1 and he's playing against the Bengals, like he might get off to a very hot start. So in like a big pinch, in an emergency, if all goes south in your draft and you need a week 1 QB starter and Flacco's there, like he's probably someone that will have value. It'll just be dependent on how many games he starts. So I'm hopeful we get a lot of starts out of him, because I'm very invested in David Njoku and Cedric Tillman this season, and I definitely think he has the best chance of supporting all the pass catchers. But Shador looked really good in the preseason as well, so who knows?
And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. This is our quarterback rankings. We're going to be doing a rankings video every day this week, so stick with us if you want to see the rest. See our description down below if you want our full rankings, and we look forward to talking to you in the next one.